They say the desert keeps its secrets well. The dunes shift, the wind howls, and voices travel on the night air that are not always human. Travelers speak of whispers that follow them when no one walks behind, of eyes glinting in the darkness, not belonging to any beast of flesh and blood. And when they return, if they return, they tell stories of beings older than mankind itself, beings made not of clay and earth, but of smokeless fire. These are the Djinn, not the playful tricksters of children's tales, nor the wish-granting genies of polished lamps. No, the Djinn that haunt the edges of memory are far more terrible. Creatures of shadow and flame, bound not by the laws of man, but by their own pride, hunger, and wrath. Long before the first stone was placed to mark a human city, the Djinn were already here, watching, waiting, building their own kingdoms in the unseen places of the world. And tonight, we will peel back the veil. We will explore their forbidden secrets, the lore that even the desert tries to swallow, and the stories whispered by those who claim to have seen them. But a warning, once you know of the Djinn, they may know of you. The Djinn story begins long before ours. In the oldest of Arabic traditions, and in the verses of the Quran itself, it is said that mankind was shaped from clay, angels from light, and Djinn from fire. But not just any fire. Nar as-Samum, a smokeless flame, pure, searing, untamed. From this fire they were formed, and in that fire their nature remains. Quick to rage, swift to wander, boundless in desire. They lived in tribes, like us. They had leaders, rulers, even wars. Entire civilizations parallel to our own, unseen by the human eye. Some whispered they lived in the ruins of forgotten temples, in caves where the sunlight cannot reach, in the barren stretches of the desert where no water flows. And though they are made of fire, their hunger is not only for flame, they hunger for power, for vengeance, and sometimes for us. It is said that before mankind was even born, the Djinn roamed freely upon the earth. They were given strength, cunning, and lifespans that far outstrip ours. And yet, like us, they were flawed. Some obeyed, many rebelled. Their arrogance drew them into conflict with the angels themselves. When humans finally entered the story, the Djinn watched with envy and disdain. Why should creatures of clay, weak, breakable, short-lived, be honored above them? Why should mankind inherit the earth when the Djinn had walked it first? This resentment festered, and from it came the first curses. The Djinn are not bound to the flesh as we are. Their bodies are smoke and flame, shifting, changing, bending to their will. What we see, if we ever see them, is only the mask they choose to wear. Some appear as towering shadows, with eyes glowing like embers in a dying fire. Others take the form of animals, a black dog with a gaze too human, a serpent coiled where no serpent should be, or a bird whose cry echoes like laughter. There are stories of travelers in the desert meeting strangers on the road. A man who walks alone under the moonlight, silent, too tall, his steps making no sound in the sand. Speak to him, and he answers with words that sound almost human, until they twist into whispers that no language knows. And when you glance away, even for a moment, he is gone. These forms are not illusions. They are manifestations, projections of the Djinn's essence into our world. But their true bodies, no eye can see them. They exist in a realm beside ours, close enough to touch, but hidden, like a shadow that doesn't belong to anything. The desert people say the Djinn live in a place called Alam al-Jinn, the world of the Djinn. It overlaps with ours, but runs on different rules. Some describe it as a mirror image of Earth, deserts, mountains, seas, even cities, but built of fire, smoke, and darkness. A shepherd in Oman once claimed he wandered too far from his flock and found himself at the mouth of a cavern. Inside, he heard music, drums, flutes, laughter, echoing deep within. Drawn by curiosity, he stepped inside. What he saw, he would never forget. He spoke of palaces made of flames, rivers that shimmered like molten copper, and creatures who danced in forms too strange to describe. They beckoned him closer, offering food, drink, companionship. But the shepherd fled, blinded by terror, swearing that if he had eaten even a bite, he would never have returned to the human world. It is said the Djinn realm can only be glimpsed at moments when the veil is thin, at the edge of sleep, in the heat of delirium, or when a ritual forces open the gate. But once seen, it is never forgotten. The Djinn's powers are many and dangerous. They can whisper into the human heart, planting doubt, fear, temptation. They can cloud the eyes, making one see what is not there, or fail to see what truly is. They can twist dreams, invade sleep, and leave a person waking in terror with bruises or burns upon their skin. The most dreaded of their powers, however, is possession. A Djinn may slip into the body of a human, hiding in the veins and bones, puppeteering flesh like a hollow shell. The victim speaks in voices not their own. Their eyes burn with fire. Their strength grows unnatural. Families have been torn apart by such hauntings, with holy men called to drive the spirit out through prayer and ritual. But not all possessions end with release. Some end with the victim simply vanishing. Yet for all their terror, the Djinn are not invincible. Like us, they can be harmed. They can be bound by certain words, controlled by certain names, and destroyed by divine command. But knowledge of these secrets is rare, and those who seek them often pay a terrible price. In the shifting sands of Arabia, people still whisper a warning: never walk alone after midnight, never whistle in the desert wind, never pour boiling water on the ground without first saying a prayer. For these acts are said to call the Djinn, and once they are called, they do not easily leave. Legends of the Djinn do not come from scholars alone. They come from the lips of wanderers, shepherds, and families who swear their lives were touched or cursed by these spirits. In the desert, such stories are not just tales, they are warnings. Long ago, a merchant caravan set out across the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, the most desolate desert in Arabia. They carried spices, silks, and gold, enough wealth to make every man among them rich. But the desert night is a hungry thing. As the moon rose, the men heard music drifting on the wind, the faint thrum of drums, the shimmer of flutes. They thought another caravan must be near, celebrating. Drawn by curiosity and greed, they followed the sound. By dawn, only the camels remained, wandering aimlessly without riders. Not a single man returned, and the music still whispered through the dunes on nights when the moon is high. The Bedouins say the Djinn lured them into their realm, their souls forever bound to a banquet of shadows. In Yemen, there is a well so deep that no one dares draw water from it. The locals call it Bir al-Hauta, the well of darkness. A farmer's son, desperate in a drought, lowered a bucket despite the elder's warnings. He drew up not water, but a small clay jar sealed with wax. Against his father's cries, he broke the seal. The next night, his home filled with screams. His mother said a figure of smoke and flame walked the halls, clawing at the boy's chest. The family fled, abandoning the house. The villagers later sealed the well with stones, whispering that the boy had freed a Djinn that had been imprisoned there centuries before. To this day, no one drinks from that place. In Oman, they tell of a spirit who walks the desert roads at twilight. She appears as a beautiful young bride, dressed in white, her face hidden by a veil. Travelers who stop to help her are met with soft laughter, promises of blessings if they take her home. But those who bring her into their tents are never seen again. One shepherd who claimed to escape said that as he leaned close to lift her veil, he saw not a woman's face, but a mouth filled with fire, eyes like burning coal. He fled into the night, hearing her laughter chasing him across the sands. The villagers say she is a Djinn cursed to wander, luring men to their doom, her hunger never satisfied. There is one tale, darker than the rest. A family in the Najd region once reported strange happenings in their home. Food spoiled overnight. The animals refused to enter the courtyard, and the youngest child woke screaming, claiming a tall shadow stood at the foot of his bed. Then came the burn marks, small, circular, on the boy's arms and legs, as if pressed by unseen fingers of fire. The family brought a holy man, who recited prayers through the night. The boy convulsed, his voice shifting, deepening, speaking in words no child could know. The holy man commanded the spirit to leave, but the laughter that filled the room was not human. By dawn, the boy was gone, His bed empty, the sheets smoldering as if burned from within. The house stands abandoned, the walls blackened with soot. No one dares enter, for the people say the Djinn who claimed the child still waits inside. The desert remembers, and its tales are not told for entertainment, but for survival. For if the Djinn are angered, their vengeance is swift, and their curses eternal. For all their distance, the Djinn are never too far from us. They linger at the edges of our homes, in the silence of abandoned places, in the flicker of firelight where shadows bend too sharply. And though most people pray to avoid them, there are always those who seek them out. But a bargain with the Djinn is never clean. There are whispers of men who call upon the Djinn for power, not through lamps or trinkets, but through blood, words, and devotion. In the deserts of Morocco, old manuscripts speak of rituals written in a language not meant for human tongues, scripts that promise wealth, knowledge, and dominion over others, if only the summoner will bind himself to a Djinn. But every pact demands a price. One tale tells of a scholar in Cairo who longed for wisdom beyond mortal reach. He fasted in darkness for 40 days, reciting invocations older than any mosque or temple. On the final night, a figure came to him, cloaked in smoke, its voice a whisper that rattled the bones. It promised him knowledge, the language of the stars, the secrets of the earth, even glimpses into the future. The scholar accepted. His writings became famed for their brilliance. Kings sought his counsel, but his family withered. His wife died young, his children fell into madness, and at last, he was found wandering the streets, blind, muttering to unseen companions. They say he died with a smile and black ash in his mouth. But not all dealings are chosen. Some are forced. Possession is the most dreaded sign of a Djinn's wrath. A person may begin with nightmares, their sleep filled with choking smoke, burning hands, or laughter that does not fade upon waking. Then, their body begins to betray them. Their voice shifts, their strength grows unnatural. They speak languages they never learned. In Saudi Arabia, there is the famous case of Layla, a young woman said to be taken by a Djinn. Her family described her as kind, gentle, until one night she collapsed screaming. When she awoke, her eyes were black, her voice deep. She spoke of deserts she had never seen, of rivers of fire, of names that no one dared repeat. For months, her family brought clerics and healers. She would scream at the Quran, claw at her own skin, curse in voices that were not hers. Some said it was madness. Others said the Djinn that possessed her was an Ifrit, one of the fiercest of their kind, who had marked her bloodline long ago. Her fate, no one knows. Some say she was freed after a brutal exorcism. Others claim she still roams the desert at night, her laughter echoing across the dunes. The Djinn do not always strike the individual. Sometimes their vengeance passes from one generation to the next. A Bedouin family tells of an ancestor who insulted a Djinn while drawing water from a desert spring. In rage, the spirit cursed his bloodline. Since then, each generation of the family loses a child mysteriously. The body found burned, though no fire ever touched them. The villagers whisper that this will not end until the family repays the insult, though no one knows how. And so, with each birth, the family waits in dread, praying that this child, perhaps, will be spared. But why do they torment us? Why do they meddle in our lives? Some say it is envy. Others say it is their nature to tempt and destroy as a test of mankind's faith. And still others whisper that the Djinn hunger for what we have, flesh, warmth, the fragility of our souls. For though they are made of fire, it is said the greatest longing of the Djinn is to feel the world as we do, to taste, to love, to suffer. And so, they slip into our skin, binding themselves to our bodies, feeding from our fears, our desires, our sins. The truth is uncertain, but one thing is known. When the Djinn take notice of you, your life will never be your own again. The Djinn may be born of Arabia's deserts, but their shadow does not stop there. As trade, conquest, and stories spread across the ancient world, so too did whispers of these beings. Each culture gave them new names, new forms, yet their essence remained the same: spirits of fire, cunning, and malice, dwelling just beyond the veil of human sight. Long before Islam, Persian myth told of beings called divs, dark, destructive entities that opposed the forces of good. These divs were said to live in ruins, mountains, and wastelands, feeding on human misery. When Islam reached Persia, the divs and the jinn became entangled in memory, the lines blurred. Some even claimed the divs were a tribe of jinn, exiled for their rebellion, cursed to forever bring chaos. Even today in the highlands of Iran, there are stories of fire spirits that stalk the mountain paths, appearing as men who vanish into smoke. Villagers leave offerings of bread or salt at crossroads, hoping to appease whatever watches them from the dark. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Plato spoke of daimones, spirits that existed between gods and men, unseen forces that influenced human fate. To the Greeks, not all daimones were evil, some guided, others corrupted. But as stories traveled across the Mediterranean, many began to see parallels between the daimons and the jinn, both unseen, both capable of temptation, both powerful in shaping destiny. Later, when these ideas merged with Christian thought, the term demon twisted into something darker, demons, and the line between jinn and demon grew thin. In Jewish mysticism, there are tales of shedim, shadowy beings that dwell in desolate places, born of fire and air. They eat, drink, marry, and die, much like humans, but remain unseen by mortal eyes. Some rabbis even debated whether the shedim were the same beings described in Arabic lands as jinn. One Talmudic story tells of King Solomon commanding spirits to build his great temple. With a ring engraved with the name of God, he bent these beings to his will. Some scholars believe these were jinn, summoned, bound, and forced to labor. And even today, across Jewish folklore, the shedim appear as tricksters, tempters, and sometimes destroyers. When tales of the jinn reached Europe, they changed once more. Medieval travelers spoke of strange spirits in the East, of beings who lived in lamps and bottles, who granted wishes to the bold. Over time, the terrifying fire spirits of the desert were reshaped into the fanciful genies of fairy tales. But beneath the polish of children's stories, the old fear remained. Even in the West, whispers persisted of bargains too dangerous, of entities too powerful to control. The lamp, the bottle, the wish, these were only masks. The truth of the jinn was far darker. Across continents, the names may differ, divs, daimones, shedim, demons, spirits, but the echoes are the same, unseen beings of fire and air, whisperers at the edge of dreams, hunters in the night. The jinn do not belong to one people, one land, or one faith. They are everywhere, watching, waiting, adapting to the tongues that speak of them. And perhaps that is their greatest power, not their fire, nor their strength, but their ability to hide within every culture, every story, until they are impossible to escape. Not all who whisper of the jinn do so in fear. Some whisper in longing, some whisper in greed. For though the jinn are dangerous, there are always those who try to bind them. In dusty libraries and forbidden corners of old cities, there exist books said to hold the keys to summoning. One such tome is the Kitab al-Ajnas, the Book of Spirits. Another, the Shams al-Ma'arif, the Sun of Knowledge, infamous for its invocations. These texts speak of names, secret names of the jinn, and with those names, power. But to call a jinn by name is to invite it near, and to invite it near is to gamble with one's soul. Scholars say the invocations involve blood, incense, and isolation. The summoner must write sigils, chant verses, and wait in darkness until the jinn appears. And when it does, it offers a bargain: riches, lovers, knowledge, revenge. Yet always, a price is demand. One ritual whispered among magicians involves the circle. The summoner draws a boundary with salt or with ink mixed with their own blood. Within the circle, they are safe, for the jinn cannot cross without permission. But if the circle is broken, even by a grain of sand, the jinn is free. There are stories of men found dead within such circles, their bodies burned from the inside, the ground around them scorched as if by lightning. Some say they failed to keep their chant steady. Others say the jinn tricked them, whispering words that lured them into breaking the line themselves. It is said there are names not meant for human tongues, names that, when spoken aloud, make the air grow heavy, the fire dim, the shadows deepen. These are the true names of the Djinn. To know a Djinn's true name is to hold a thread of power over it. But the danger cuts both ways. For once spoken, the Djinn also knows you. It knows your voice, your scent, your soul. It may wait years before it strikes, but when it does, it will be precise. One tale tells of a young man in Damascus who sought to summon a Djinn to avenge the murder of his brother. He studied forbidden texts, fasted, prayed in reverse. At last, he called forth a spirit in the ruins outside the city. The Djinn appeared, towering, smoke rising from its shoulders. It asked him what he desired. The man begged for vengeance. The Djinn smiled, and then it vanished. The next day, the murderer of his brother was found dead. But so was the young man, his body twisted, his eyes burned black. In the sand near him, a single word was written: mine. To summon a Djinn is to light a fire you cannot control. You may think you hold the torch, but soon the fire will consume your hands, your home, your soul. And the Djinn, they will walk away, hungrier than before. It would be comforting to think the Djinn belong only to the past, to campfires, ruins, and desert nights. But the stories have not stopped. Even today, whispers of the Djinn haunt modern life. A family moved into a new apartment in Riyadh. At first, everything was fine, but soon, objects shifted at night. Doors slammed with no wind. The youngest child spoke of a man in the corner, tall with glowing eyes. Neighbors said the building was cursed, built upon land once used for ritual. The family fled after only 3 months, leaving furniture behind. The landlord still struggles to find tenants, for the story has spread. And no one wants to share a home with Djinn. In 2003, a soldier stationed in Iraq wrote of a night patrol through abandoned villages. He and his unit heard footsteps behind them, but no one was there. Later, they saw a figure dart between the ruins, moving faster than any human. When they cornered it, the figure dissolved into smoke. The soldier swore the air grew burning hot, though the night was cold. His report was dismissed, but years later, he told the story again, unchanged, his voice trembling. It wasn't human, he said, and it knew we were watching. In modern Kuwait, taxi drivers whisper of a woman dressed all in black who flags down rides at night. She asks to be taken to remote places, cemeteries, abandoned roads. When they arrive, she vanishes from the back seat. One driver said she left behind a smell of smoke, and his car engine never worked again. Others refuse to pick her up at all, saying she is a Djinn, cursed to wander until someone foolish enough follows her into the dark. In Jordan, a man reported receiving phone calls late at night. At first, silence, then whispers, then a voice that began to speak his own thoughts back to him, word for word, as if mocking him. He changed numbers, phones, even moved cities. The calls followed. The last time he answered, the voice simply said, "You can't run from fire." He stopped answering after that. Across the modern world, from Riyadh to London, from Karachi to Los Angeles, reports surface. Strange shadows, whispers in empty rooms, people speaking in voices not their own. We call them hauntings, possessions, ghosts, but in the old tongues, the people know better. They call them what they have always been: Djinn. The Djinn are not just tales of the past. They are fire without smoke, shadows without form, hunger without end. They are as old as the deserts themselves, and just as merciless. We've traced their stories, from the origins of fire, to whispered folk curses, to modern encounters that slip into the news before being quietly forgotten. And through it all, one truth remains. The Djinn are not bound to myths. They are bound to us. Every time a child wakes screaming, claiming someone whispered their name in the dark. Every time a traveler feels watched on an empty road. Every time a family flees a home, swearing the walls themselves whispered. The Djinn linger. They may be invisible. They may be ignored, but they are always there. Before we end, remember the old rules whispered by the desert. Never wander alone at night. Never whistle into the wind. Never pour boiling water on the ground without prayer. For these are not empty superstitions. They are the fragile boundary between our world and theirs, and those who cross it rarely return the same. And yet, as we close, one last tale remains. They say that when you speak too long of the Djinn, they begin to listen. They gather in the silence between words, in the pauses between breaths, in the shadows behind your chair. So, if you've listened closely tonight, if you've leaned too near the fire, if you've allowed the stories to slip beneath your skin, then perhaps they have listened too. Perhaps they know your name now. Perhaps tonight, when the lights are low, you will hear it, whispered softly from the dark. Not from me, not from anyone you know, but from something waiting.